Airing news and challenging views. The Listening Post, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Interest rate cut in the United States gave Shanghai...
From the world to your phone. Al Jazeera Mobile.
Welcome back. These are the main stories on Al Jazeera. Libya's nationwide protests result in a violent crackdown with at least 24 people killed. Demonstrators in the city of Tobruk made their views of Colonel Gaddafi known by burning down a monument of the Green Book that contains the leader's political views. Egyptian authorities have arrested 3 former government ministers and a businessman who are under investigation for corruption. And more demonstrations are planned today to celebrate the removal of President Hosni Mubarak last week. The aftermath of a police crackdown in Bahrain. The city's capital, Manama, remains under police lockdown. There are concerns now that funerals for those killed on Thursday could heighten tensions. The British government has criticised for approving billions of pounds in arms sales to Arab governments with poor human rights records. Including Bahrain, Al Jazeera's, of course, Rory Challenge joins me now. It's been no secret, Rory, that the British do sell arms to many countries, including Bahrain, but it makes it uncomfortable considering the British government themselves have tacitly criticised Bahrain for the way they've dealt with the protesters.
Yeah, well, the British government is starting to feel increasingly uneasy, I think, about the level of arms sales that it has made through the various companies that operate in Britain to countries in the Middle East and North Africa, which are going through these various forms of popular uprising at the moment. Now, the British government does have certain criteria by which it measures whether countries are suitable for arms sales and whether it can sell arms to those countries. And the Foreign Office issued this last night, and what those criteria are. It says, we will not authorise any exports which we assess might provoke or prolong regional or internal conflicts, which might be used to facilitate internal repression or which would in any other way be contrary to the criteria. And it is starting to feel that the arms sales that it made to Bahrain might have contravened those criteria, and that the events which are going on in Bahrain at the moment might cause it to rethink. And it is doing that at the moment, and it will, it says, revamp or reassess its policy towards Bahrain if it finds that those criteria have been breached.
Indeed, and it was highlighted in 2 major British newspapers as to companies don't just supply Bahrain, as you said, other countries including Libya, Saudi Arabia. The support is there, so questions will be raised as to who you support and who you don't, depending on your own security needs.
Yeah, well, the British government is in many ways facing exactly the same kind of predicament that the US government is facing at the moment, which is essentially, how do you deal with popular uprisings in countries which you've previously supported, the governments of which you've previously supported? And we've seen the Obama administration tie itself up into all sorts of knots over this, and the British government is in a broadly similar position. The Foreign Minister, William Hague, said that it urges all sides in the Bahrain situation to show constraint. Now, that was a lot sort of more mitigated, more sort of cautious language that it was using there to how it was talking about Mubarak and Egypt just last week. So I think there is basically assessing each country as it comes up on a case-by-case basis and judging whether the individual countries are worthy of criticism or whether they should play the thing down and try and show constraint.
Well, for the moment, Rory, thanks very much for giving us the line, certainly from London and Europe. Of course, let's go to the centre of that focus. It's Bahrain, and to our correspondent, who we're not naming for security reasons. Can you just give us an update on what the streets of Manama are like this morning?
The streets of Manama, most of them are pretty quiet this morning. A pretty heavy police presence in the centre of the city and army. There are army APCs and army patrols in the centre of the city, including on the main highway. No sign, though, of security forces where I am right now, which is in a place where they are having, in the coming hours, 3 of the funerals of the dead. People have gathered here, hundreds here. The black flags are flying. They are currently washing the bodies of the three men before the funeral procession starts in the next few minutes.
And of course, previous funeral processions that we saw earlier in the week ended as being fatal, certainly in one case. How much of a concern is there from people you may have spoken to about today's scenario?
Yeah, well, I've spoken to people here. I spoke a short time ago to an MP from the Al-Wifaq party, which is one of the leading opposition parties that's now pulled its MPs out of Parliament. And most people here believe that security forces today will not try and stop these funeral marches. I think they know the level of grief and the level of anger of those involved. For that reason, they probably won't. And there's another reason why they probably won't, which is that the previous march that was disrupted went straight from the hospital in the centre of the city, right down a major road, and that's when it was stopped. Here on this occasion, the bodies are already in a suburban area, and the march will be carried out from here. So people think it's less likely that the authorities will try to stop the route and the progression of the funeral march on this occasion.
We'll just see what happens through the day. We know that you'll be following events for us. Thank you for joining us from Manama. In Yemen, pro- and anti-government protesters clashed in the capital on Thursday. Several thousand people defied government appeals for calm and marched through Sana'a on Thursday. They want more political freedom and for President Ali Abdullah Saleh to step down. The protesters have vowed to continue with their actions until their demands are met. Meanwhile, the country's ulama, or religious leaders, have called for the formation of a unity government. A curfew has been imposed in parts of Iraq after violence in the country's north and south. Protests ended in security forces opening fire in Sulaymaniyah in the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region. And in Kut, south of the capital Baghdad, there were also clashes. In Sulaymaniyah, a peaceful demonstration ended in stones being thrown at the headquarters of the Kurdistan Democratic Party. Security forces then shot back at the protesters, reportedly killing 2 people. And in Kut, protests ended with some demonstrators storming a regional government headquarters. At least 1 teenager was killed in the clashes that followed. The city remains under curfew. Many of the protests have been organised online by young people. And as Jane Araf reports now from Baghdad.
Nofal Falahi refers to this bench as her office. It's from here with wireless modems that she and 2 other art students have launched an internet campaign. It mobilizes young people to go out on the streets to protest.
There's many rules, working alone, and so we want to put them together. There was 1,000 people when we started on the first week.
It's all carried out on Facebook. Access to the web was essentially banned in Iraq before 2003. While Nof and her friends had seen the internet a few times, they'd never been able to use it. Mustafa is now an expert in using videos and photos.
We're trying to get our message across, and we say that the youth can change things.
This college is a small oasis of freedom.